Welcome to the deep dive. You give us the research, and we give you the shortcut, the key takeaways, the context, everything you need, fast. Today, we're digging into a really significant piece of ecological science. It's all about how earthworms, how they became such a huge issue across North America. We're focusing on one specific paper. The title tells you a lot. Multiple invasion routes have led to the pervasive introduction of earthworms in North America. And it's recent, published February 2024 in Nature, Ecology and Evolution. That journal placement, it signals this is a big deal. Foundational stuff about a major ecological shift.
Absolutely. And look at the team behind it. The lead author, Mathieu, is from Sorbonne University, but he's working with, giants in the field, people like Carlos Fragoso and especially John Warren Reynolds. Reynolds is the global expert in oligoketology. That's the study of worms. Hundreds of publications. When you see names like that tackling a synthesis paper, you know something important is being summarized or reframed for the field.
Right, that adds serious weight.
Yeah.
So the title gives us clues. Multiple invasion routes, pervasive introduction. What's the central question they're really tackling here? It seems like it's not just that worms are invasive, which we kind of knew, but how did it get so widespread, those routes, that mechanism?
Exactly. And the crucial background, for anyone listening, is that for a huge chunk of North America, basically anywhere the glaciers were, earthworms are not native. The ice sheets, retreating maybe 10,000 years ago, essentially wiped the slate clean. Wiped out any native worms in those northern soils. So the worms that we see today, they're almost all imports. Came over with European settlement, soil movement, that sort of thing.
Okay, and that word pervasive in the title.
Yeah.
That feels key. It tells us this isn't just a few worms here and there near, say, fishing spots. It's continental, widespread, which means the ecological impact, the stress, is also massive and systemic, and, crucially, ongoing.
Precisely. A lot of earlier work showed the damage worms cause in specific forests or regions. That's well documented. The novelty here, what Mathieu and the team are really focusing on, is synthesizing the evidence for how this became so pervasive, those multiple routes. It's about pulling together the understanding of all the different human activities that are constantly introducing and spreading these worms.
And it seems the scientific community took notice immediately. You mentioned it's recent, but it already had like 15 citations and hundreds of reads pretty quickly after publication.
Yeah, that's a strong signal. It tells you that ecologists recognize right away, okay, this synthesis is important. This frames the problem in a way we need to pay attention to.
Great. So let's get into those findings mentioned in the title, the multiplicity of routes and the resulting pervasiveness. How are they connected?
They're completely intertwined. The fact that there isn't just one way worms are spreading, but many different ways, is why the invasion has become so widespread and hard to stop.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. What are these routes? Can we break them down?
Yeah, the paper implicitly groups them into sort of categories based on human activity. Think about it this way. First, there's recreation. The classic example is fishing bait. Anglers buy worms, maybe dump the unused ones near the lake or river, boom, new population established.
Ah, the old bait bucket dump.
Okay. Second, you have landscaping and general commerce, moving soil, nursery plants, compost. Earthworm cocoons and young worms travel really easily in potted plants or bags of topsoil. Think about plants moving across state lines or even internationally. Huge vector.
Wow, okay. Didn't really think about my potted plant purchase like that.
And third, resource extraction. Things like forestry, logging. Heavy machinery moves through forests. It picks up soil, carries worms and cocoons on its tracks or blades. They transport logs, shift equipment, and inadvertently spread worms deep into areas that might have been worm-free before.
So it's this sheer diversity of pathways. Fishing, gardening, logging, all constantly adding to the spread. That's what creates the pervasive.
Exactly. It's not just one leaky pipe. It's hundreds of different leaks happening all the time, everywhere.
That paints a stark picture. The fishing bucket is one thing, but a whole truckload of nursery plants that could start a major new infestation miles away. But let's connect this back to why it matters ecologically.
Yeah.
We mentioned northern forests evolved without worms. What actually happens when they show up? You hear about the leaf litter disappearing?
Yeah, the duff layer, that thick mat of dead leaves on the forest floor.
Yeah.
In these northern glaciated ecosystems, that layer is everything. It built up over years because there wasn't anything to break it down quickly. It holds moisture, it insulates the soil, it's where seeds germinate, where fungi network. It's the foundation.
Okay.
Then invasive worms arrive, especially certain species like the European nightcrawler, Lumbricus terrestris, and they are voracious. They can eat through years of accumulated duff in maybe a single season.
A single season.
Yeah. Yeah. And when that duff layer vanishes, you get several big problems almost immediately. One, the soil loses its ability to hold moisture. It dries out way faster. Two, nutrients aren't held and released slowly. They get washed away, leached out. And three, perhaps most critically, you lose the habitat for native understory plants. Things like trilliums, ferns, orchids, tree seedlings, their seeds need that duff layer to germinate and survive. Without it, the forest floor becomes bare mineral soil, often compacted, and these native plants just disappear. It fundamentally changes the forest structure from the ground up.
So it's a complete ecosystem reengineering, essentially,
Yeah.
driven by these tiny invaders.
That's a good way to put it.
And this is why the Mathieu paper is so important. They're not just saying worms are bad. They're saying, look, the reason they're everywhere is because we're constantly moving them around in all these different ways, synthesizing that connection.
Precisely. Understanding those vectors, those routes, is the absolute first step if you want to think about mitigation or management. If the invasion was, say, a one-time historical event, we'd just be dealing with the aftermath. But because it's continually fueled by modern human activity,
Like buying that plant or going fishing.
right, it means the problem is dynamic, it's active, and interventions need to target those ongoing activities, the sources of spread.
That really shifts the focus, doesn't it, from just managing the invaded forests to managing the human activities that cause the invasions in the first place.
It has to. That's the major implication for policy and land management coming out of this synthesis.
So if you're a forest manager or a conservation agency, this paper basically tells you, you can't just have one strategy.
No, because the invasion isn't coming from one direction or one source. Your management strategy has to be as diverse as the invasion routes themselves. Well, for example, if fishing bait is a known route, maybe you need educational campaigns at boat launches, signs about proper disposal, maybe even regulations on selling certain worm species in sensitive areas.
Okay. And for the commercial side.
If moving nursery stock is a big driver, then maybe you need stricter rules about treating soil before transport, certification programs, or maybe cleaning protocols for logging equipment before it enters a new forest block.
Targeting the movement, not just the worms once they're already established and basically impossible to remove.
Exactly, because eradication, once they're widespread, that's it. Well, that's generally off the table. It's about preventing new introductions and slowing the spread. This raises an important question, though.
Which is?
Okay, so Mathieu and colleagues synthesized the evidence to show that these multiple routes exist and contribute to the pervasiveness. That's huge. But the next logical step, the thing we still really need, is figuring out the relative importance of each route.
Ah, right. Like how much of the spread is due to fishing versus landscaping versus logging? Which vector is the biggest contributor?
Precisely. Because resources for management are always limited, aren't they? You need to know where to focus your efforts for the biggest impact.
Is stopping bait dumping going to move the needle 5% or 50%? Is regulating the nursery trade the key intervention? We need that data.
We do. That quantification piece is crucial for designing effective, targeted policies. This paper lays the essential groundwork by identifying the routes. The next wave of research needs to tackle their relative contributions.
And I imagine that's not easy to figure out. Quantifying human behavior, tracking soil movement across huge areas.
Oh, it's incredibly complex. You have variables like climate, soil type, natural barriers influencing things too. It's a major research challenge, but a necessary one.
So what does this all mean? Let's try to sum up the core takeaway here. This deep dive into the Mathieu paper shows us that the earthworm invasion in North America isn't just bad, it's incredibly widespread, pervasive, because we humans keep introducing them through many different pathways, multiple invasion routes.
Right. And because it's constantly being fed by these different human activities, managing it requires thinking holistically, targeting those activities, those vectors of spread.
Not just a single magic bullet solution.
Definitely not. It demands diverse, maybe even localized strategies, depending on which routes are most active in a particular region. And maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to take away from this. Given how fundamental this earthworm invasion is and how relatively recently we've synthesized the how of its spread, thanks to work like this, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other species that we see every day, maybe even in our own backyards, species we assume are just there, are actually non-native? Ecological invaders quietly reshaping the environment around us.
That's a sobering thought. The earthworm story is maybe just one really obvious example of a much broader phenomenon driven by our own mobility.
It's a powerful reminder of our impact, often unintended.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.